Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Aaron Jacobs podcast. I am Aaron Jacobs, a former public school band director turned health coach and wellness advocate for teachers. And today I have a very special guest on the podcast. I'm welcoming Lisa Harding from Teacher Career Transitions. Lisa, how are you doing today?
I'm so excited to be here and connecting with your audience and chatting today.
Awesome. So I obviously work primarily with teachers, and so do you as well. So we have a lot in common. Let's first start out because, especially if you're a teacher, if you are not familiar with Lisa's work and all of the groups she has on Facebook, this is something that you should definitely be aware of. So, Lisa, let's talk about you, your journey, and how you help teachers.
Sure, Aaron. Thank you. So sometimes I feel like I'm a teacher or I used to be a teacher, but I actually was never in the classroom. I was born into a family of teachers. My parents actually met teaching middle school together in Western Pennsylvania. After college, I took a different path. I started working right away for an ed tech company. Specifically, it was an online teacher professional development company. If you're a teacher out there and you've ever done CEUs online, there's a chance that we might have worked together. I worked there for 15 years, had the honor and privilege to serve as the company's CEO for my last 5 years. So a very dedicated career working with teachers, training teachers, all online. I stepped down to be a stay-at-home mom. I have 2 little ones. But I missed working with teachers. I realized how much I loved working with them. Teachers started reaching out to me on LinkedIn asking for career advice because, Aaron, in that 15 years, not only did I, help run the business, but I recruited, hired so many teachers to work with me at the ed tech company. And that's kind of how I parlayed into getting my own career coaching certification and just being laser focused on teachers and helping those teachers that wanted to make a career transition, help them make it a reality. And now we have the Teacher Career Transition Academy, and we're helping thousands of teachers make that journey.
Awesome. That is incredible. And I think with the profession being where it is much needed. I think a lot of teachers are looking to get out of the classroom. I've said it on a lot of my content previously that there's about 500,000 teachers less in the classroom since 2020, which is a staggering statistic. So it's tough for me because I'm part of that statistic, and yet I want education to succeed, but I also knew that I couldn't help be a part of it succeeding while I was in the classroom. So what do you love most about working with teachers?
Well, I think at this point, it's that feeling of it feels like home to me. Like teachers feel like family. And I don't generally like to make brushing characteristics, like statements about groups of people, but I've worked with teachers so much. I think that as a group, they're the most special people on the planet. And I think that's because first, it takes a special kind of heart and openness to even decide that you want to become a teacher. And then just the compassion and love that they put into their career, I think makes them special. But then I've also seen it on the other side of the table. Some of my all-time best employees are former teachers, and they're just amazing people to work with. I love working with them, and I can't imagine not working with teachers.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's always been my impression of most of my colleagues too, is that there's a real affinity and emotional attachment to the work and finding the meaning in the work. And I think teachers are still looking for that in other ways, even if they know they can't necessarily be in the classroom. And with regards to not being in the classroom, what do you think if there's a teacher that's in the spot right now where they might be looking to get out of the classroom? What is the biggest struggle that teachers face when making a career transition, and how have you helped address that with some of your clients?
Sure. So that's a big question. And I think the biggest answer is that there are multiple struggles along the way. So the entire path of leaving the classroom, there are big hurdles and struggles to get over. But I think my biggest takeaway just from working with so many people, it's that initial feeling of what am I going to do? It's so overwhelming. And I call it career transition paralysis because teachers really do have so many different skills. And I've worked with teachers that go into so many different career paths that they can do so much that it's overwhelming to think about, well, what am I going to do? And then it becomes overwhelming to think, how am I going to find that job? How do I market myself? And I think the biggest struggle that is throughout is the feeling of overwhelm. And my approach is to take everything step by step. I'm a very process oriented person. You might imagine being a CEO, like process is in my blood. So for me, it's breaking the career transition down into a process, focusing step by step, not getting overwhelmed by everything. So my coaching strategy, the academy, there's a 4-step process. It actually starts with mindset, overcoming limiting mindsets, beliefs, believing in yourself, confidence, just preparing for a change, like things that you have to consider from salary, childcare, benefits. Just let's break it down. Let's talk about it. The next step, when you're ready to move on, career exploration. So let's dive into that. We'll take that baby step by baby step. After that, marketing materials, advertising yourself. That's all of your personal branding, resume, LinkedIn, networking. And then the final step, let's work on that when we get there. Interview prep, negotiation. And I think taking it step by step really helps take away some of that overwhelm.
That's so well laid out. And I think teachers are also very process oriented people. So I think they are looking for that like very clear process because they do that every single day in the classroom, laying that out for kids, whatever their subject matter is. So now that they've got that process in place, what careers have you found teachers can most successfully pivot into outside of something that's more of like an entrepreneurial type of a thing, like going into the private sector as an employee? Where do you see them generally being successful?
Yeah. So again, this kind of goes back to that overwhelm. And I've seen success in so many different careers. And that's why we spend a lot of time with career clarity, which is, teachers, all teachers have a certain set of transferable skills. And so it doesn't matter if you're a band director, you teach music, you teach social studies, there are core skills that you have that pretty much every teacher has. So what we try to do is focus on the individual's unique personality, kind of like what sparks joy for them. And so I think that is the key. But to answer your question, what types of careers? I've seen success in data analytics, business intelligence, learning and development, going into the ed tech field, which could be curriculum writing in the marketing space, project management. There's folks that are successfully going into that. So as you can see, it's so diverse, which is why the career clarity piece of it is so important.
Exactly. Yes. And I think a lot of people would just love that guidance. I think a lot of people also carry those limiting beliefs with them because they've been so attached to having that one future as a teacher. I myself felt that as well. And so the idea of not being a band director after getting 2 advanced degrees in being a band director and doing it for 15 years, like thinking about doing anything else, like knowing where to start, I did it by myself. I wish I would have found you beforehand. I would have gotten to where I am now, but I probably would have gotten there without maybe as much strain on my mind and like, inner turmoil as I had to kind of work through, I think, on my own. So how many teachers would you say, though, that you've worked with that have guidance, speaking of that turmoil, that might need some guidance around maybe their physical health and certainly their mental health?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think that you can talk about changing careers without addressing mental health and then layer in that we're working with teachers. And now you definitely can't have that conversation without mental health because there's also this period of kind of recovery from trauma. A lot of teachers are leaving with trauma and they don't realize, maybe they don't think about it as that term. Not every teacher that's leaving was in a bad place, but a lot were. Or the guilt, because teaching is such a personal, like there's a lot of emotion in that career. So there's a lot of guilt. And that's why for me, step 1 of the Teacher Career Transition Academy and our coaching process is mindset. A lot of people start and they're like, I don't want to do that part. Like I want to get to the resume. And I get that. But if you don't have a solid foundation, if you don't have that positive outlook, it's going to be so much harder. And a lot of teachers actually pair a career transition with counseling, like professional counseling to help with that. And I know on your show and what you do, you're about the wellness and the physical. And I think those two things go hand in hand. I mean, I've seen it in my own life. When you're at your best physically, at your best mentally, you can be your best in the other aspects of your life. So it's kind of that full circle moment where you want to try to work on yourself then before going on and doing big things with your career.
Absolutely. And we kind of spoke to some limiting beliefs earlier, and I've seen this with teachers and learning how to the mindset to break outside of those. It's amazing as I talk to people who've now actually even entered the program and are now seeing what I'm talking about. I asked them, how different would your classroom be if you walked in and you weighed this much less and you felt this way and you were able to do this and you were able to bench press this and you were able to run this fast? Like, how much more confident would you? They have a hard time even imagining a different version of themselves. And so like the mental process, like the limiting beliefs, it starts up here. It does. If you can't get past what's in your mind, you're never going to get where you want to go and figure out where you want to go. As you've said, part of that process is figuring where you want to go. Speaking of where teachers can go, 2025, we're in a brand new year. Not saying thumbs up or thumbs down either way when it comes to actual political parties on my channel, because I don't do that, because I want to help teachers regardless of what they think about politics. How do you feel with 2025 now, new White House? How do you feel the job market looks for teachers changing jobs? And alongside that, what is the need to potentially add certifications or upskill?
Right now, when we're recording this, we're early 2025. We're here in January. Who knows what the next month, the next year will look like, but I can comment on how the job market is right now. And it is a tougher job market than we have seen in several years. And that's coming from experts much smarter than I am. Everyone's kind of saying the same thing. It is kind of a tough job market now, but that doesn't mean if it's time for you to get a job that should be putting you off, because it's kind of like the housing market. There's never really the best time, or there's not a great time, and you just never know what's next. So I focus more on where are we, and then what are the tactics and strategies that we need to use in the current job market. And so for where we are right now when we're recording this, Aaron, because things change, the number one most important thing is networking. And I'll get to the certification thing in a minute. So in this current job market, networking with your personal connections that you know in real life, but also going out onto LinkedIn, making sure your profile is optimized. We work with teachers on that. We work with how to connect with people that make sense, how to set up what we call informational interviews. Some people call them coffee chats. And there's something called the hidden job market, which is statistics put out, again, by people smarter than me, that 80% of jobs right now are being attained without ever having a job posting. So 80% of people getting jobs in the current market are doing it through networking. And I like to help people be the 80%, don't be the 20. The other thing to keep in mind is remote work is super hot topic right now. Everyone loves this idea of working remote. The issue with remote jobs, and I'm not saying don't apply for them, you got to use that networking. You've just exponentially increase your competition. So I also like to give advice, look local, because a lot of jobs, and my husband is a great example. He recently got a job. It was posted locally, but it ended up being a hybrid job. And they basically said, we can't post this not local because we get people from all over, but working 2 or 3 days from home is amazing. As far as upskilling and certifications, I think they are important for certain careers and certain jobs. So I'm going to go back to that career clarity and why it's important to laser focus on 1 or 2 careers and really learn about those careers. Talk to people that have been in them, do the networking, set up those informational interviews, and the career will dictate if upskilling and certifications are important or required. I actually have a great resource, Aaron, that I'd be happy to share with your listeners. It's a career directory. It has over 200 career profiles that teachers have transitioned into, and it includes a section that talks about related certifications or upskilling to that career.
Wow. That would be a super handy guide. And is that available on your website?
It is. I'll give you a link if you want to include it in the show notes. It's also available on our website, and I can give you links to the Facebook groups. I like that resource because it also gives a average US salary range. So if your listeners are in the US, that's helpful as like a general guide, just to kind of see is that something that financially aligns as well? Because that's a piece of it.
That's so handy. And like, I don't think there's any collection of resources out there like that I can find for teachers specifically, at least that I found. You are the leader of the pack on that. And that is incredible.
Thank you.
It's such a needed thing in this world. And
it was a labor of love, but it is probably our most popular resource. I'm happy to give it out to your audience.
I'm absolutely going to take a look at it too, just out of pure curiosity. It sounds incredible. And we touched a little bit on this, or you touched a little bit on this just now. And, maybe it's not a part of our plan for the show, but I do want to unpack a little bit about remote work, because I also agree with you on remote work. And I made a post about this, I think a week or two ago, that I think a lot of teachers are looking for remote work for psychological reasons. The classroom is a very noisy and chaotic environment, even sometimes in the best of circumstances. And so I think, like, for me as a teacher, I am naturally an introvert, which I would tell my band students that, and they would go, "Are you kidding me? No, there's no way you're an introvert, dude." But they didn't know me as a kid. Like, I'm still naturally an introvert. I still need that like quiet social battery recharge time. And I think a lot of teachers have their social battery overloaded. And so I think for teachers, and I'll let you definitely obviously chime in here, but I think a lot of teachers just understand the reason you're asking for a remote job. And like, is it really because it's likely because you are just overloaded on your social battery? And like, for me, if I was to go into the private sector, I would be looking for a hybrid or in-person job. If you're entering a new field, I mean, there's no better way to collaborate than collaborate with other adults. And like, especially if the work environment, like, and you see success stories actually all the time in your Facebook group of people going, "I love my coworkers. I have a great boss. I asked for this day off because I was sick," or like, "My kid needed this and my boss was so nice." So like, there are tons of success stories of shifting into a hybrid or fully in-person job where teachers are very happy not being remote. If you could back that up, or if you feel seen that.
Yeah, I love how you put that. It's that, like, if it's a spectrum, like teaching in the classroom is a 10, we're like total chaos, you're on your feet. And so you want out of that. So you think of the 0. So you're just like,
Yes.
I'm totally done. I need a 0, which would be like remote, no one's bothering me, and I'm home. But even if you went to a 5, there's nothing like teaching in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
We were in office when I worked at the professional development company 5 days a week. I loved it. It was calm. It was relaxing. I sat at my desk. No one really bothered me. I wanted to chat with someone, I would get up. So I think that teachers will still get that relief, even if they're in an in-person setting. And there is just a lot that as you touched on, there's a lot you can learn being in an office, because you might discover a different career path. Like, oh, what's Sally doing? You overhear her on the phone, or people are talking. So yeah, definitely don't shy away from that. And also, I know we're not talking politics, but we did just have an election or an installation of a new president, and there is a mandate. All federal workers are now going back to in-person, and more companies are doing that. I think we're going to start seeing that trickle down, and there are going to be less and less remote work opportunities. So I think that's something to consider as well.
I'm still a big advocate for hybrid jobs. I do, like, for me, in my ideal world on the work week, I do think that there should be most jobs, for the sake of accountability, collaboration, efficiency. There needs to be a decent amount of in-person collaboration, but allowing the flexibility for people to still get their work done from home 1 to 2 days a week, I think that kind of meets the best of both worlds and meets the employee's ability to live their life, to take care of things on a personal level, to probably, I'm a big advocate for physical fitness, to make it a little bit easier to make it to the gym on those days when you're working from home, because you've saved the time on your commute. So there's a lot of advantages, I think, to the hybrid situation too. And certainly now, me working now as a solopreneur, and you may have experienced this too, potentially, but there are days where, like yesterday, I felt like it was a little bit lonely. Like I was just not scheduled to coach in person at our gym until later in the afternoon. And so I literally was working all day from home by myself. I also have been sick this week, and so I wasn't also very active. And so it was like kind of a brain drain and a bit of a letdown yesterday. Has that been your experience too?
Yeah, and I can touch on when, because I worked during the pandemic and I was full-time in the office, and then it was like overnight we had to figure out working from home and doing that. And so then I did work from home for a while, and then we did so I've kind of done a little bit of everything. Now I'm an entrepreneur. I get my batteries charged around other people, so I guess I'm an extrovert, although I don't like people sometimes. It's like, I don't like the crowds, but anyway, I get my batteries charged being with people. So for me, I'm a hybrid person as well. And I just think it's adaptability. I think this market needs adaptability. And just if you love what you do, you can do that in person. You can do it at home. And finding a fit for you. And I also work with teachers. And one thing I say is, your first job out of the classroom is not going to be your last job. It could be if you really wanted it to, but chances are it's not. You have to remember that education is one of the only careers where there's just this ladder, step by step, like in 10 years what you're going to be making and quite frankly, what you're going to be doing to some degree. I mean, my career, it may not be the norm. I don't know if people go to CEO, like not everyone does that, but I literally started entry-level product marketing role. And I left there as the CEO. So I'm just such a big fan of talking about career trajectory and talking about how your first career is truly just a stepping stone. So whether that's in person or remote, doesn't matter. The next career is going to be a little bit different. And as you build those stepping stone experiences, you're going to know more what you want, what you like, and you're going to have more ammunition to go get it that second time you go out to change careers or get the promotion or move up.
Your process is very clear, I think, and so needed. What advice would you give to a teacher that's feeling the itch to get out, but they really don't know what they want to do outside the classroom, even before they were to start? Like, let's say they sign up to be coached with you. What do you think the very first thing they should think about would be, and how can they find their path?
That's probably a bigger question than even the first one. And that is literally the biggest question I think that I get. And I actually put together a free 1-hour group coaching session, and I run it about once a month, at least now. And I'm planning to continue to do it since it is our most popular topic. I'm happy to share that link with your audience as well. Depending on when you're listening in, there'll probably be a session coming up in the next month or so. Some of the tips in that are going into that career clarity and also considering the practical considerations of making a career change. And one of my favorite exercises that I do with teachers is kind of just called, like, I forget the actual name, but it's like unpacking all the questions that are up in your head. So there's lots of things floating around that are overwhelming. So we work through, let's just write those down. And I have a list of them as well, but write down all the things that you need to think about and then just start thinking about them. I'm like, what do you need to be salary wise? Do you have a partner or a spouse or someone that can help you through? Like, think through all of the things, start talking them out. Even if you don't have the answers yet, there's something about getting it down on paper. Writing goals for yourself. They're not the end all be all of your goals, but just get started. Dip your toe in the water. I think the career coaching session is called How to Start Your Teacher Career Transition. Everyone leaves there saying, I feel better. I have goals. I'm motivated to get started. So I'll give you that link as well, Aaron.
There's going to be a lot of links and a lot of resources for today's show, which I think is going to be very, very welcome. So speaking of which, since we do have a lot of links and lots of resources today, Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can everyone find you and follow all of your awesome work?
Well, just the Teacher Career Transition Academy.com website has links to everything. There's a live trainings tab there, so you can see all of the free coaching sessions that I'm doing. I do a lot of free because I just think that's important. It's kind of where I came from. Mm-hmm. And a lot of resources linked on there. Also, I know, Aaron, we connected in one of the Facebook groups that I manage. Mm-hmm. There's Life After Teaching. It is actually the largest Facebook group of its kind. And then we have a smaller, more intimate sister group that's Teacher Career Transition. So I can give you, again, more links, but lots of great free resources. And I'm a big believer in community and not going through this alone. So I love the Facebook groups for that aspect.
Absolutely. Yes. It helps to feel like you're not going alone.